after you hung in Bali, you left for Darwin. How was that trip?
Yeah. I got there on the 24th of the 12th, 1974. Tried to buy a ticket to get out of there and missed the plane. The plane was just leaving as I tried to book it. She said, you'll have to go Christmas morning. Because I hitchhiked out there and I got 60, 80 miles out there and I only had 2 cents on me. I thought, this is a long way to go with 2 cents to Sydney from Darwin. Like, it took 7 hours to go across it by Sydney to Darwin by plane. About 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours, because it was a 7-hour trip to Bali. But most of it was travelling across Australia. So hitchhiking, the Sydney is a long way with 2 cents in your pocket. So I come back to Darwin, rang my girlfriend, said, I just thought you can send me a couple of $100 and I can fly home. She said, yeah, done. She put it in the bank and I ran and got that done. Tried to get the plane and missed it by 15 minutes. She said, it's just leaving. You won't catch it. It's 10 minutes away from here. They'll be boarding now. She said, you'll have to go tomorrow. Okay, I'll go tomorrow, Christmas Day, no problem. Well, that night, Cyclone Tracy hit. And as we know, 60 people were killed. More than 66 people, I think. And the whole town, when I walked in it looked like an atom bomb had hit it. The steel posts were bent over and touching the ground. Cars were all over the road. There was electricity wires everywhere. And there was that cast iron metal that they made with roofs was everywhere. And that's dangerous stuff flying at 160 miles an hour through the air. It was cutting people's heads off because they ended up in their wardrobes because the whole house blew down. There was houses gone everywhere. Everywhere I walked, everywhere I went. I was in total shock. So I wanted to leave. And I went and paid the people that put me up. And they said, well, this is a rarity. Somebody paying us. I said, well, no, that's the way I am. And thanks very much for having me, you know, because I just walked in and said, can you put me up? And they did. So I appreciated it and paid them. I cooked a meal for 16 of them that night. There was 16 of them living there, and I cooked a vegetarian buckwheat meal with heaps of miso and miso soup or stew or something, and fed them all. And you know, that was what I liked doing. I liked being, you know, laying my food on to people and showing them how good it was and what you could do with vegetables. So, you know, I mean, that was a successful night. But they woke us all up early in the morning because there was, listen to the radio, sirens were going, they were saying, hide in your cupboard, hide here. I was laughing. I thought, you cunts tripping, or is this serious, you know? I mean, what's going on here? So anyway, I'm lying there asleep, and the next thing I know, everybody's been woken up. What's up? We've got to go and hide in this fucking brick garage. So 16 of them went in this garage and they were all lying down. And 3 of us just fell back to sleep, didn't give a shit. Well, anyway, 6 inches of water started running through the house. It was a 2-story house. The top story had been blown off. We hadn't realised. And the piers were shaken. And there was only a brick toilet. And we looked out and the wind was blowing at 160 miles an hour that way. And 5 minutes later it was blowing 160 miles an hour the other way. And it didn't stop. So that's turn of the donut, they call it. When it turned, and it's because it's got a centre, and if it misses the centre, it just comes across and ends up going the other way because it's a circle. Well, that's where all the damage was done, I think, in that turn of the wind. The, you know, it worked. Anyway, me and the three guys, we sat there and watched the piers, stayed under the piers and watched the whole house shake for 6 hours. It was pretty scary. And when I woke up in the morning, I walked up we were in Mitchell Street, which is the main street, 50 feet from the shops, right up to Woolworths. And Woolworths doors was all blown in, all the shops were wrecked, and down further was the suburbs, and they were flattened. There was nothing left of them, and it was like an atomic bomb had hit the place. And I thought, oh man, that was a wild acid trip I just took, and I couldn't fathom it. But I knew it was real. So I hitchhiked out of there. That's the end of that story. Eventually I think I was the first person to fucking leave the joint. And I ended up getting picked up about 80 miles out of town. A guy dropped me off. He went looking out of Darwin to find a house he had built in the country to see if they could go live there, because his house was ruined. They had nothing left. This is Christmas Day, mind you. Anyway, this truckie picked me up. And I said, did you see the cyclone? He said, what fucking cyclone? I said, Darwin, mate, it's ruined. There must be 100 people dead. Anyway, he kept driving, and we'd stop and go into a shop or something to get a drink and a snack, a pie or something, whatever people got. I could hardly drink. You know, I was that traumatised by the whole thing. And people said, because the news didn't get around for 3 days. Nobody flew over Darwin and seen the damage because there was no communication in or out of the place. They didn't have, radios and whatsies. Everything was wrecked. They had no communication. So they had to fly over it to have a look at it to see why Darwin was so quiet. And they realised. But in that 3 days that I hitchhiked down through, they said, we hear there's a cyclone hit Darwin. I was like, yeah, there's 100 people dead. The town's ruined. It's totally stuffed. I said, I've never seen anything like it. And they'd look at the truckie who was with me and they'd say, is this true? The truckie's saying, no. So they'd say, get out of our shop. So everywhere I went, I got kicked out and I didn't get anything for thousands of miles. And in the end, I went to shake the guy's hand thanking for a lift. It was sort of 3 ways. One way went to Darwin, one way went to Alice Springs, and one way went to Mount Isa. They call that the 3 ways. There's a pub right there. It's the 3 ways pub. So I went in there with him and I went to shake the guy's hand. He said, I want to shake your hand, mate. You're a fucking idiot, you know. I thought, welcome to Australia, Greg. It's me, Johnny. I'm home.